Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today, and today we're going to be putting in a K04 turbo. That's right, I said it. It also comes with the diverter valve kit. So it relocates it for the Unitronic one. I don't know about the one for APR and stuff. You might just use your stock. But, again, this is built for the relocation kit for the Unitronic version. So the first thing I did was jack up my car, and I took a look at what parts I needed. So you just need to make sure you have some spline sockets, which I can show you in a sec. They're actually just under the car right now. But other than that, first thing we're going to do is make sure you're not jacking your car up too high. You still want to be able to access stuff up here. We're going to want to loosen off this bolt, loosen off this bolt. If you have an aftermarket air intake and you've seen me do this video, you pretty much know what's going on here. We got to remove this pipe right here. So that's, I believe, a Torx on that side. And then right here, I just have to loosen off these two and that one right there so we can take out this whole, just this one pipe right here. That's all we really need out right now from the top end, and then we'll go down below. Alright, so all I did was, of course, just like before, you squeeze these like I've showed in many videos, and then you pull back on it so you can get this out. Once you get that out, the next thing before you start taking the pipe out, I suggest you pull out the math. Pretty easy, squeeze right here, and it comes up and out. Just got to get that barb through. And then once you get that up and out, now we have the top end free up here. Now we can look around the engine and see what's going on up and over here. Now I'm going to have to get underneath and see what's going on down there before I do anything else. I might even just take off this piece because we actually won't be reusing this piece. You get a new one, which is for the diverter valve piece, which is right here, as you can see. So I'm just going to remove that from the old turbo. So as you can see, this is the passenger side, that's the driver's side. Get onto the passenger side. If you get onto the passenger side, whoa, sorry, just rolling over here. As you can see, these are the spline style bits you're going to need. I got a whole pack of them. They cost me like 10 bucks. Not a big dealio. And as you can see, ta-da, it's our turbocharger right there. So first thing you should do is see these two, I think those are 16mm bolts if I can remember, and you're gonna just take those two off, and then we're gonna roll this right out of the way. Alright guys, so the next thing we're gonna be doing is using our spline sockets and removing this, so that way we can pull out our I want to say drive axle. But yeah, just loosen these off. Make sure you have this white line. If you don't see it here, try rotating the tire. I've put a stand under there to stop it from rotating. It's up to you if you want to get someone to hold the brakes or what, but I found it at this perfect angle, it won't try to rotate the tire anyway. But this was on there from the factory. If you rotate the tire, you probably will see a white line on there. If you don't, if you want to, just put your own white line so that way you know how everything's going to go back together. So as you can see, all the screws are out. This now moves freely from the other one, and it's but yeah, when you're pulling the bolts out, it can be a little bit difficult. Just support this with your hand on, or support this part with your hand, and then just all I did is I loosened them up enough. I mean, it's super easy. They weren't that hard to loosen. After I got them loosened, I didn't take them all completely out until they were all loosened, and then so that way I didn't put any real crazy torque on one bolt. So after I just slightly loosened them all, I just hand unthreaded them. Alright guys, the next thing we're going to need to do is pull off this rim. Of course I didn't know to do this before, so all I did is I used this as a brace, and so that way I can rip this rim off. Now if you've never taken off or out these plugs before, all you need is something with an angle. You can just pull it out like that. Just gotta make sure you get it in on a bit of an angle to pull forward. You might have one which is a lock key, so make sure you have your key. And now, just take these out and you're ready to go. So next thing you want to do is pop out the center cap on your rim, and I'll show you why. As you can see, we have a 24mm multi right here that we're gonna have to pull out. So it's easier if you pop out the center cap. I kind of went the hard way around it and I just did this, but I'll show you what we got to do in a sec here. So from here what we're going to do is we're actually going to drop this tire onto the ground so that way we can, after we put this tire on the ground, it'll help us for when we're trying to loosen this bolt. You're going to want a pretty nice wrench. I got a torque wrench here, but if you got a breaker bar, or if you have another wrench, of course you could do the old pipe trick. Up to you though. We had to use the breaker bar, and we had to use a pipe on the edge, and we had to get Tariq to basically stand on it. That thing was nice and tight. Considering this thing's like only 4 years old, that was a lot of pressure. So now we're gonna unloose that drive shaft. We're gonna lift the car back up on this side so we can work on it nice and safely. So the next thing we also want to do is, of course, get this all out of here. So see this wire right here? Pop this up. Boom. See how that popped out? There's a little black thing already popped out. All you do is you wiggle it and the barbs will come out, the plastic barbs. And then this, just wiggle back and forth forwards. Push on this. Probably can't do it with my finger. Oh, let's see. Pro. So put that underneath. Now that's out of the way. That's for the downpipe, and we don't want to break that wire because that's, of course, the O2 sensor, and that's not a fun piece to have to replace. So now that we've done that, we can go underneath and remove our downpipe. This is the downpipe that goes up over there. You're going to need to loosen that bolt off, and then you're going to have to loosen off that bolt right there, and you're going to have to loosen that one right there. That's a 1/2 inch, and I can't remember what that one is. I think it was a 7 or 8. I'll have to check. Alright guys, you see that turbo? Or the turbo and then the downpipe? We're going to be loosening those downpipe bolts. Those are 14 mil. Probably the one back there was way off. That one should have been a 10 millimeter. Alright, so if you have this clip like this, you're going to need a flat blade, and then you just work it out. You can either use a poker or this, but you loosen this bolt all the way, and you're going to have to work it off with a flat blade. I know it's hard to do because, God, it's so shiny, but if you already have a downpipe, yeah. So you just turn and the clamp will separate, and you just do it bit by bit. After it does that, just loosen this bolt like I'm doing all the way off. I just have it up here so that way I can show you. Just loosen all the way off, take the clamp off, and we have to separate these two. Alright guys, so if you take a look here, what I did is I released these 3 bolts down here. 1, 2, 3. Push this in. And then, yeah, look, the axle popped out. No. And then afterwards, since I have the downpipe out, I had that extra clearance in the back. And now we can just slide the drive shaft out right here. So, just give me a second, we'll do that. Alright, so if you take a look here, we got some more bolts here. Let's pop the turbo support off before we start doing liquids, because after we start doing liquids, we want to make the switch over pretty quick. So we're just going to get all these bolts off, and then we're going to start getting off these bolts up here. These are your manifold bolts, which I'm sure you can sort of see on the camera, one there, one there. Let's get your manifold bolts off and the support bracket off. Or, well, what you want to do is off this, you want to just loosen them, crack them. You want to get them nice and loose, so that way it's super easy for you to drop that turbo down when you're ready to go. Make sure you have a friend when bringing this down. I'm sure if you've already felt what an aftermarket turbo feels like, you know why I'm saying this. So if you're looking in from the fender well, you'll see this screw, there's one up here and one right here, and this is your blow-off valve. We're just going to take that out, and it's just an Allen key. So just loosen this off and just get those out so we can pop the blow-off valve. Any piece that we can take off to make this thing a little lighter or easier to get out would be better. Alright, so if you take a look here, put your little mini flat blade in here, flex down, and then pull down. That's what you're doing. Just in there, flex down, pull down. Be very gentle with these clips. You do not want to break them. Okay? But yeah, like I said, in there, flex down. Cool. Alright, so right here, if you take a look, you have a 7 mil nut. It was actually on the back end behind the frame. I reached my hand around and I slowly undid it. It brings this hose clamp off, so that way when we got the turbo all coming out, then we can just lift it off and get it off this pipe. If you want to, you can try and take out the noise pipe, or whatever they call this pipe right here. After you get it out, then you just have that free. But I'm going to try and just get the tube right out of there. Next part is to use our 12 points, and we're going to start taking out the fluids. Make sure you keep your eyes away. If you have glasses, safety glasses, put them on, and put gloves on if you want, and put a bucket down, so when all the fluid starts coming out, it's going to collect all in there. So if you look here, come to the heat shield, look right where my ratchet is. If I pull the ratchet out, there's going to be a bolt right there. You're going to have to remove it. It's attached to another line of the turbo. That was an Allen wrench, and it's about an 8 mil, but I couldn't tell you what. 5/16 works. But 5/16 works. There we go. So, look right there. That's the one that's going to pee. See how it's peeing transmission fluid? It literally pees out a lot. So, make sure you're ready and ready for a mess, because it's going to make one. I heard of guys when they changed these saying that their t-shirts and everything were soaked in coolant. I see why. So, I've got all the hoses undone now, all 3 here, and then the only one I haven't undone is the one on the top of the turbo, because I'm going to leave them connected to the turbo as I pull it down. So the only thing I've got now is I've undone the support bracket. I'm going to go around, make sure all tubes are disconnected from it, and then it's time to lower the turbo in and out. Alright guys, so if you take a look here, I have everything out, like every hose. Some of them are tricky, just so you know. Let me get this stupid light off my arm. There we go. It's part of not having a hoist. Up here, there's 2 lines, or 2 bolts right here, and these ones are easy. 1, 1, 2, and then up here you'll see 1, and there's 1 more above it. Don't, you know, you want to get that one too. After that, unbolt them from all the way around the turbo. Take that all off. Loosen this off. Make sure you're all unplugged, and from there, I'm going to do one last check over for anything else I need to tell you. And then this puppy's coming out. And as you can see, I have 1 bolt holding the turbo in right now. And that puppy's going to be coming out. So, see that hose right there? Got to disconnect it.
Changing the oil.
Alright guys, so if you feel right here, you're going to have to reach back. And you'll feel the studs. It's fun. You need an extension and a 12 like that. Put it up onto the stud like so, and then attach your ratchet. Hoist this up. You're gonna have to pull up on the metal. As you can see, I have 1 bolt out. I couldn't get the other ones out, so all I did is pull up on this, attach my ratchet, and just ratchet it out. See where Tariq's hands are? Right on the bottom of the turbo right there is one last one I missed. That's why you always have 2 sets of eyes. We're all good.
Alright guys, out with the old, in with the new. Oh.
Alright, so if we're looking over this, you can see this is going to be changing. This is going to be going away, and we've got a new one that's going to be going on here. See, this whole part is deleted. Other thing you're going to notice is deleted, which is right here, diverter valve. The diverter valve's been deleted on this one because what's happening is we're doing a diverter relocation kit, which is all part of the fun that will start. But tonight, we are calling it quits. We got it out. This is definitely a 2-day project. Don't kid yourself if you wake up in the morning. And mind you, I'm only saying that because I didn't have anything to go off of. Once you see this video, I hope this helps you out. So I'm going to go in under the car and put this new gasket. How you know which way it goes? Because I just pulled it out. It goes just like this. The tab should be facing through the back there. And this symbol goes like that. Just feed this up onto the bolts like this. So if you're under the car, it goes like that. Alright, so you see all those old bolts there that I've got in the pile right there? This was our manifold and our downpipe bolts. Those will no longer be used. Unitronic gives you these. So I'll keep those in the packaging right now. As you can see, we have new washers for these, which are our fluid lines. These of course have leaks, or not leaks, but that's where they come out, the fluids, when you unbolt them. So we'll be putting new washers on there, and then we have 2 more bolts, which are, I can't remember these ones. We do have 2 more bolts though, which I've got my bolt collection here, which are going to get new washers, which are the ones right here. And then we have right here a new gasket, because there's only one major gasket. But other than that, I've got all our bolts lined out here. Now it's time to just get everything going. As you can see, axle nuts, That right there holds in the downpipe. Those 3 bolts hold in the these Allen key bolts hold on our blow-off valve. These 3 hold our trim in. We've got our hoses. We've got our turbo support mount. We have these 2, which I'm sure hold in the pipes at different locations. And then we have this 2, which hold in the pipes at different locations around here. And then that's basically it. So, oh, and then these 2, which are going to go on our manifold afterwards. I already got our new gasket in, which you just seen. Now it's time to prep the turbo, which we'll need these 4 studs for, and I'll let you know everything else we need for the turbo side. Alright, so as you can see, we have our stud. Long end goes outward, small end goes inward. All you do is take some grippy gloves like I've got here, tighten these on with your hand, and as you can see, she's in. It's snug. Just leave it like that. The bolt will do the rest when we start torquing that downpipe down. Alright guys, so if you take a look here, you'll see I have all the studs in. That one right there I had to use a pair of pliers on to get in because it wasn't 100%. I tried to rethread it 3 times to make sure I wasn't crossing. I wasn't. There's just, it needed to get in there and it was a little bit stuck. So all I did was I used this and I made sure I did not go anywhere near these threads or those threads. You have to grab it by the center. I use these. You can also use small vice grips. I didn't have vice grips small enough that I trusted. So all I did is I used pliers, and it's not like you have to use a lot of pressure. So it wasn't too bad. It did make this a little shiny, but whatevs, right? That's where our gasket and our downpipe's going to sit anyway. So that's all good. Now I need to start looking at hosing and stuff that we're going to transfer over before putting it in. Alright guys, so if you look at the base of this, you'll see the one tube that's left right here. You're going to see this clip and you're going to have to take it off. So to do so, you just pry a little bit on, see that little edge? You pry up on it a bit, and then, so once you got an edge, you take that big flat blade and you pry up on it, and you're just trying to get that piece of metal off the 3 little nubs. Once it's off the 3 little nubs, you can bend it around and then just firmly, as you can see right here, this is on here, grab it firmly with your hand, wiggle and pull out, and then the tube will come off this, and we're going to put it on this one, like so. If you want, you can monitor the position we had it in, but yeah, there's a little bit of flexibility in moving this pipe around. So as you can see here, I'm just getting pieces ready. This is for the intake side. That's going to go right there, like so. And then we've got the blow-off valve right here, which is going to come off of this side, like so. And I'm just going to do a little bit more research on how she's going to sit in there. But if we go over here, sort of show you, there's a noise pipe here, or not noise pipe, I just keep saying noise pipe, don't ask me why, but see that pipe right there? We're going to have to pull that one out. And once we pull that one out, this one goes in there for the blow-off valve kit, and then the blow-off valve is going to get bolted on top. So that'll sit here, and then the intake one will sit over there by where that tubey is, and it's going to come around. So I'm just getting it all ready. Again, I'm not tightening any of the clamps. I won't tighten them until everything's in the car. So that way it leaves you lots of adjustment room. There's no perfect way until you actually have it in the car. So as I said, next one's in like this, and then we've got our one tube right there. Now I've just got to do a little bit more research, and I'm going to probably just bolt my blow-off valve on there so that part's done and nice and easy. I'm putting the blow-off valve in pretty easy. See that little dimple right there, right next to the screw? Only one of them has a dimple. All you do is line it up with the only dimpled one there, and then afterwards you just put her in and bolt her down, just like that. Alright guys, so if you take a look right here, got to take the belly pan off. So this pan, just take out the screws, it's just a Torx. And just, yeah, take them all the way out so we can pop it down. So if you're looking right here at the front of the grill and you go underneath, you'll see that one bolt right here, it's a T30. You're just going to loosen it off. After you've loosened it off, just pull back on the pipe and you'll see it's free. It won't actually come out. Just leave it in there. And now we can go up top and start working on that. So the next two to loosen is this one right here and this one right here. It looks like it's probably maybe a 6 or 7 mil, or you could always try with a flat blade, but a lot of the times a flat blade won't get them off. Alright, so if you see right there, you'll see a screw that's out. It's right over there. Let's see if I can get some more light on it. There it is. Right there. It's attached to that plastic pipe as well. You need to loosen that off. And then if you look right under this pipe, yay for German engineering, right there, that's another plug. You're going to have to do your little mini flat blade screwdriver and unplug that pipe so we can remove it for a sec to get this rubber grommet off up here. So you'll see that I left this over here. It was over here. All I did is I popped this forwards and over here, and then I just pulled the pipe right out, which is this one. And as you can see, the plug, you can even unplug this, wiggle this down so the connector is down here so you can see better, then do your flat blade thing and pop it out. Put this over here, come up to the top. You'll see that there's the pipe that'll be on here. All you got to do is slowly work around it with a flat blade. That's all I did. It's a little bit tricky just because it's been there for a while and it's been really hot. So you're gonna have to get in there with the flat blade and separate it. Separate it as much as you can. Have this as loose as you can get it, and just continuously stretching it down, and then grab with all your force and pull down, and it should come out. After that, we can put in the noise pipe. I'm just getting this part out so that way I don't have to worry about it later. So I was having a heck of a time getting that pipe on over there. So what I ended up doing was basically it was not getting it on, it was tightening the two bolts. They just wouldn't go in. So what I did is I shortened this just a tiny bit so I can get it in here. I've seen this done on YouTube with another diverter valve kit for this. So I seen that this had to be done. I didn't know if Unitronic fixed the issue. Doesn't look like they did. So I trimmed it, and now I get to see if it works. Alright, so first thing I did was I put on that coupler as you've seen up top. Next thing I did is I fed the tube back in, up there, plugging it in on the way up. Left it resting just up here on the piece of metal, and then press this back in. Once you press it back in, you don't have to worry, it only presses in one way and it just presses forwards. You just realign the clip. You'll see it's fitting properly, and if you want to make sure, try pulling back and it won't move if it's in there nice and good. Again, this is just for your intercooler, so hot air is blowing through, you don't have to worry about liquids shooting out. But again, it's one of those things where just make sure she's on. And then after I got it up there, I went up top, made sure it was sitting on the rubber. I could see it from down here, and it was pretty much there, but I had to work it around with my fingers to make sure it went into the rubber. And then I just tightened one screw down here, a little bit, not all the way, just in there, so it's nice and good. Now I'm going to tighten up the next screw, which is midway. So once you're good here, and you're good on that one, as you can see we're good, I'm going to now aim this like I have, and I probably won't even tighten this yet, not until I have the turbo in. That way I can just run all my lines at the same time. But I'm going to see how everything goes from here. Alright, so we have our harness right here. All I've done is I've got it loosely in here until I get the turbo in. It'll just sit like this and along through there, and it plugs in down here. You can't really get it wrong. There's only one connector it'll fit in. Let's see if I can get down where the turbo is. So the turbo one, if you're looking at it, there's a little notch. I can't really show you it. But the one for the turbo doesn't have the notch. The one for the diverter valve does have a notch. You'll see a little notch. If you look at both plugs side by side, it'll stand right out to you. One's got a notch, one doesn't. Plug the diverter valve relocation harness into there, and it's right here as you can see. And I'm going to tidy that all up afterwards. Right now, I've got the diverter valve as far as I want to get it for now, and now it's time to get the turbo in here. Alright, so next thing we're going to want to do is, you can see here you have the little clips that we're used to, little flat blade, unplug, 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 unplug. Slowly work them back, they won't come all the way out, but yeah, as you do that, it'll all come out. So the next thing we're going to be doing is bolting on our PCV delete, which will go right here on the side of the turbo. You just pull in your two Allen keys, which the kit comes with. Make sure I just lubed up the O-ring a little bit so it nice and seals a little bit better. But yeah, So just bolt that in there. So I was told I could try and reuse the snap ring. I'm not big on that, so I just went and picked myself up another hose clamp. As you can see, hose clamp's right there. It's on and it's ready to go. So turbo's ready to go in now. I've got the block off plate, this on, studs are in. Now it's just time to open up the new bolts. And there should be, remember, 5 on the top, 4 on the bottom, so 9 in total. Also, don't forget your blocks. Remember, these go like this. As you can see, they're both the exact same piece. Nothing different. All you're gonna do is put it like this. Once it's up there, screw the bolt on it like that. Those will help support it, because that's gonna be what's gonna be supporting it until we get our filler lines on. And I don't like to do them down here because then it's harder to get in from the bottom, so you might as well just have the lines off first. Alright, so you guys see those shiny bolts up there? I got them on. Make sure when you put your bolts up there, you never seize them if you ever want to get them out again, because, yeah, it's always a good idea. You don't know what never seize is? It looks like this. It actually says anti-seize on it. It's a good thing to use. So never seize the bolts, and then when you're putting these rails on, there's no way in heck I could show you while doing the video. But what you need to do is, if you can, put the bolts on just a tiny bit, like this, before you put the turbo up. Or no, sorry, do it afterwards. Just have 2 people if you can. You need to space these bars out before you even lift the turbo up and in. Because what you do is you lift the turbo up and onto the bars, and then it sinks in between the center. So what you kind of need is almost a second person to make sure these, like, to hold the turbo, and then the person up top, the person up top holds the turbo up there, and you space the bars a little bit so that way it'll sink in, and then you tighten the bolts. But that's all you can really do. Don't try to put the bars in there after the turbo is already up there, because you won't get them in because of the wastegate line and stuff like that. Alright, so if you look up, see these studs right here? Before you even think about tightening the ones up there, you want to tighten these ones up to 20 foot-pounds. What's going to happen is we're going to tighten these ones because the turbo rests on these ones in the wedges, and then you torque the ones up there to 5, then 10, then 20 foot-pounds of torque. And you start, and then I'll give you the pattern in a bit. But for the ones down here, there's no real pattern. You just really work from the inside out if you want. Okay? Alright guys, so we're looking at our manifold here, or well, the top of our engine. See how this is your intake pipe, which is under my finger? We're going to tighten the bolts, which will be the first one right here, right close to your intake pipe. 1, 3, 5. First tighten it to 10, 1, 3, 5, and then you go back to the center between the 2 here, and then 1 right here. So it's 1, 3, 5, 2, 4. And you tighten those to 10, and then you go 1 at 20, 3 at 20, 5 at 20, and yeah, just so on and so forth. Just do that, and once they're at 20, you're good to go. And from there, we get to start screwing stuff onto the bottom of it. Okay, so the next thing that we got to do for the turbo is we're going to have to pull out this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and this one right here. There's like 5 in total. And then there's one that you'll see down here. I've already got them loose, so that way I can just pull this out and show you. But you're just going to unscrew it, which I'll do right now. And it should just drop out like so pretty much. It might just be holding it. And see how we've got this Torx right here? We're going to take this off. The reason why is we need to move this so we can get the pipe on for the turbo, the new one that you've got. And of course that's going to be, see that neck right there? That one's going to go right here. So make sure you use the clamps that come with your turbo, and we'll put that between the turbo right there and the turbo. Cool. There's nothing really tricky with this pipe. Just make sure when you're putting on your bands, they're still a little bit up here. As you can see, I've got a little bit of space. Make sure they're not too cockeyed. You want them like as flush as you can get them, so that way they aren't going to get loose. And they give you a Phillips to tighten them. I always use a ratchet. I want these buggers tight so I don't have to worry about them coming off. If you've ever had an intake pop off the top of the turbo, you know why. So we're putting the turbo back in, and as you can see, you have all these bolts with the holes in them. banjos, as they're called. And as you can see, this one is a bit smaller than that one. So this little bit smaller one goes in from the top of the turbo. And then the inlet that's closest to between the turbo and the engine is where this Allen key one goes. That's a big one. And then the other two big ones, well, they just go on the very bottom, and of course the front side facing the firewall. And that's how you put them in. Make sure that you put the highest hose up first and work your way down. It'll be a little bit easier. But yeah, that's basically it. Just make sure you work your way down with the hoses, because the one at the very top is a bit higher and it's a little bit tricky. Now, as you've seen, I pulled the lines off the... So the next thing I was going to say to you is, you've seen I pulled the lines off the block. When I pulled the lines off the block, the thing is Unitronic doesn't give you new washers for them, so I used the pre-existing washers and I just flipped them. And again, as I said earlier in the video, and I'll tell you again before you put the turbo in, because you've obviously, you know, you're going to run through this first. Make sure before you do, you switch the bungs. Both bungs on the turbo when you get it from Unitronic are on the wrong side, or just put your turbo in or match it with the, like, put your turbo side by side and make sure the bung's in the right hole. Like I said before you put it in, you can switch the bungs out at this point. It's a little bit more difficult. When you pull the bung out, make sure you flip the copper washer, put the bung back in. You don't, it's just safe practice. So just do that, tighten them up to about 40 foot-pounds. And then with these ones, we're gonna go to, I was reading, the bolts are 18 foot-pounds, and I'll double check on these ones. Alright, so for the banjos here, these are 20 foot-pounds. For the little screws that are these ones, I was looking up online, they say like 9 Newton-meters, so I'd say at 10 foot-pounds torque. Again, if you're using like an Allen key style, it's just, you tighten it to the block so it's snug, and then you just crank like less than quarter turn. But again, if you have a torque wrench that'll read that low, then yeah, you're looking at about 10 to 15, or just, you know what? These are such a small shaft, you just don't want to break them. That's basically it. Use your, you know, to each your own, use your common sense when it comes to them. Alright guys, see all these block ones? You'll see there's the 3 that I keep mentioning, right? Make sure you do all 3 block ones. Like, put the turbo in loosely if you want and then do it, or put it in after. I like to have these lines out so you have a cleaner path when putting the turbo up. What you're going to need is, again, 2 people, and before you tighten all the bolts down on the turbo, tighten in the 3 block fittings and banjos. So you have fitting, banjo. Make sure they're all tight, so that, because the inlet is going to block one of them. You'll see that at the top, and it's just it's a headache. If you've already got the turbo in, because you're doing this as you're watching, I'm going to tell you now, loosen those 5 bolts, loosen the ones on the bottom, and just trust me, it's not worth it. Just get it out, or get it loose, and then tighten them, and then now do all 4 around the turbo. So get that done, and then we can start looking at putting our axle back in. Alright, so we've got all our banjos around the turbo, all at 20, and then anything that was a screw, which are those little skinny ones, were at about 10, maybe 12. You know, we kind of went by feel. If we thought they were going to be too loose, we tightened them up a tiny bit. Next thing I did is I put in the diverter valve kit. As you can see, these are nice and tight. Ratcheted them, and I like to make them, you know, kind of look the same direction. Have this clipped in here, this clipped in here. Have this one tied in now, and this one tied in, so it's all nice. And this one. See, I made it so I could access them all, so that way if I notice, you know, if I get any codes or something stupid, I can check and make sure that this hasn't slipped. This is the #1 thing to slip, so that's why you always tighten them as much as you can. Once you've tightened all your tubing here, and that's good, then the next thing is to screw in your heat shield again. I've got to put the 2 bottom bolts in still, but the 2 back bolts, I got this one from down below, and this one was easy to get from up here. Just had to, you know, kind of contort the shield, so I got that. Now I'm going to tighten these up And I just did that so I could get my socket in there properly. So now it's time to tighten that up. After you do that, make sure that under this coil, there's that connector. This is the one that goes to the turbo. Click that in. This is, of course, the one for your intake. And then all this is up done. Go down there, just double check all the ones on the side of the block. Make sure they're all nice and tightened up again. And after the ones on the side of the block, you're sure they're all good, we can technically start assembling the top end. And if you have a secondary person, they can start getting the axle in, or you guys can start putting the axle in and then the down pipe and so on and so forth. But now you can do that. Make sure you do not plug the coils back in. This is something we're going to have to do later, where we fill the turbo with coolant again and we fill it with oil. We're going to have to almost do what's called dry start, meaning you don't want spark, but we're going to try and start it and it's going to pump fluids into the turbo, because we don't want that turbo to start up or the engine to start up without any fluids and stuff in it. And again, that's why we have I've got 2 things of oil here to replace what came out, and I've got a thing of Beck Arnley Premium Antifreeze, which should also be doing our Euro here for our antifreeze to top that back up. And again, I got the concentrate so I can make 2 bottles of it, because that was a lot of antifreeze that came out. So as you can see, axle's back in, and when you're doing this, it's do a triangular pattern all the way around when you tighten them. First, suck them down. Once you suck them down, then you will torque them. Like, you can start at 20 and then go to 50 if you want. But yeah, 50 is your end game. Double check for your car if you want, but I did 50 on these ones. When I took them out, they didn't feel like they were in that hard at all. But anyways, 50 here. And then on the end axle nut right here, the big one, which you'll have to do when your tire's on the ground, as you remember, that sucker is apparently about, for the 12 point, I was told it's about 70 to 80 foot-pounds of torque. And if you are doing one with a hex, it's supposed to be like 200 or 180 foot-pounds of torque. Now, at your own discretion, you can reuse the bolt. There's a lot of people who've done it with success, and there are some people that have done it with failing. So, if you're going to be retorquing that one to 180, I would highly suggest you be picking up a new center bolt. But with mine, apparently it's 80, and if it's 80 for this one, I have no problem doing that and reusing the bolt. But if it's any higher, definitely you want to maybe consider getting this axle bolt again. When you're putting your downpipe back in, I don't know the torque spec for these ones. Just all I ever do is I just go as hard as not as hard as I can, but one-handed, and then I go and as soon as I'm right there, I maybe go a quarter turn more, done. And I do that for holding these. With the actual V-bands, which are right here, as I'm sure you remember these are only like 7 or 9 pounds torque. I got this on my other video. I'm going to check it out before I do it, but I think it's either 7 or 9 pounds for these clasps down here. Make sure you don't over tighten them. After that, that's it. And the only thing I have to quickly look up still is the bolts for up here on the actual turbo back. Make sure that you feed your wire up here to plug it back in. If you remember, we unplugged the O2 sensor. And then the only other thing you need to plug in is your turbo over here. And make sure you plug in your blow-off valve. Okay. And then again, make sure up top you plug in your blow-off valve. Also, another thing for you when you're down here, make sure you put on your axle heat shield again. That little metal piece that went right here around the axle. When it's all said and done, make sure that one's back up and on here, because you don't want the heat from that new turbo touching the axle. Alright guys, so the next thing to do is tighten up these wheels, which I'm sure you can do. Tighten them up loosely, not loosely, but snug. Drop the car. After you've dropped the car, torque these up to 80 or 90, whatever you want. Just make sure you can pull them off with your stock jack if you really need to from the trunk, so that way if you have to switch the spare. And then this axle nut here, since we have a 12 point on this wheel, it is going to be about, I was reading up, what were you saying, Tariq? Like 80 for the center.
For the 12 point.
Yeah, for the 12 point. For the hex, it's like 180 foot-pounds of torque. Next thing to do is fill up your coolant. Check your lines. Make sure everything's done. Put your belly pan on because, well, I'm not going to show you how to do that because you should know how. It only fits one way. You've got the little, just make sure the teeth press into here on the big ones. You'll see that it just clicks in, and then put your 5 screws on each side. And the side one, after you do that, fill this up with coolant. Close it. After that, make sure these are still out. And you're going to try and start your car for about 20 seconds. It's going to pump all the fluids through the lines. After it's done that, click these in. After you've clicked them in, go start your car. Let it idle for a bit. Make sure you add some oil too, and just keep monitoring your dipstick. After you've monitored your dipstick and she starts up, turn it off. Or before you start it up, sorry, after you get all the fluids in, click these in. After you've clicked them in, flash your performance software so that way when the car starts, it knows that you've got a new turbo. Once you get your new performance software in, go from there. I'm going to make a separate video on doing that. Another thing I suggest is I'm putting up a video on how to switch your spark plugs. I'm sure if you just switch the turbo, you know how to switch spark plugs, but put new ones on. You got a new turbo, start fresh, put new plugs in. From there, if you want, you can also do an oil change right now. Then you got fresh oil, and it's up to you if you want to do fresh coolant. Other than that, that's basically it to this. You know, just make sure you throw your software on. Anyways, I hope this video helped. Subscribe if you liked it. Like for more. And if you see like the downpipe, you see the intake or anything else, and you're like, man, how do you do that? Check my channel. It's all on there.